Welcome to REIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of REIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing one of their past projects. We will let you decide if it was good or bad or just plain ugly. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is tips for choosing the correct comps. Determining the after repair value, or ARV, of a property is crucial for making informed investment decisions in real estate. Accurate ARV calculations depend on using the right comparable properties or comps. Here are 5 tips for determining the best comps. Number 1, proximity. Select comps within a close radius of the subject property, ideally within the same neighborhood or a comparable one. This ensures the comps reflect similar market conditions. Number 2, property type. Choose comps that are similar in type, such as a single-family home, condos, or multifamily units. This alignment is crucial for an apples-to-apples comparison. Number 3, size and layout. Ensure comps have a similar square footage, number of bedrooms and bathrooms, and overall layout. This similarity impacts the property's market value. Number 4, condition and age. Compare properties in a similar condition and of a comparable age. A recently renovated property should be compared to other updated properties, not to those in need of significant repairs. Number 5, recent sales. Use comps from recent sales, typically within the last 3 to 6 months. This time frame captures the most current market conditions and price trends. So, by diligently selecting the correct comps, you can accurately determine the ARV, making your investment decisions more reliable and profitable. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us my friend, Samson Burch. Samson started a career in construction working for a custom home builder at 19 years old. After several years, he moved on to working with an all-in-one remodeling company where he honed his skills in all areas of residential renovations. At age 24, he branched out to operate his own remodeling company, specializing in whole home renovations. Since then, he and his wife, Ashley, have wholesaled properties, flipped more than 30 homes, acquired over 30 rental doors, all while raising 3 children. It's my pleasure to have him back on the show, so welcome, Samson.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you.
How are the kids, by the way?
They're getting big. My youngest is testing my patience, but he is an absolute treat. He is a Sour Patch Kid for sure.
Thanks for reminding me to take my birth control. I appreciate that. So thank you for coming back on the show. It's always great to have you. We were part of Fortune Builders together. We have attended some conferences called TAB with our friend Terry Thayer, and you have always just been such a dear friend and just a genuine person, which sometimes is rare in this industry. Not all the time, but just sometimes. So thanks for being authentically you and being awesome. So we are going to talk about one of your past projects. And I love these shows because I feel like it's great teaching tools for the listeners. Our listeners are newer investors. Maybe they have 1 or 2 flips under their belt, but It just listening to the show and hearing about past projects can be so beneficial. So thank you for doing that. But before we get into it, can you tell us, how did you get involved with real estate? I know you came from the construction side, but then how did you get to actually flipping houses?
Me and my wife had talked about doing it for years. She is a teacher by trade. She doesn't teach anymore, but she did for about 10 years. And so teachers usually during the summer aren't working. So we're like, hey, flip this house on A&E was like big. And so we're like, hey, we could do that. That's not a problem. We'll just do it in the summer and you could help me. And anyway, big dreams, big aspirations, but we never pulled the trigger until fortune builders come into town. And my wife kind of saw that. She's got a little bit further vision than I do on some things. I was kind of like content and happy, which is like the worst thing you can be.
Yes.
And she was like, this is a means to an end for me. And we kind of just went all in. And it was a lot of work at first, but transitioned well.
And what does she teach? Just curious.
She was, I think, K to fifth grade. She taught in just about every grade between there and in that 10 years.
Yeah, I taught middle school for 16 years. So hence why I'm on birth control still to this day. But good for her. And glad she got out when she did. Oh, my goodness. And did she go from teaching right into real estate, or did she do anything in between?
She stayed, I think, 4 or 5 years still teaching while we were doing real estate. So it was like a second job for a few years. And then she transitioned out and she runs a lot of the back office stuff.
Very nice. All right. So I'm ready to dive into this project, and I got a little bit of information before we began, but give us a property description. How many beds and baths? What year was it built? Anything special about the actual property?
Sure. This was a manufactured home on a brick foundation. So if you know anything about manufactured homes, you can always apply for an FHA financing if they're on a permanent foundation. No axles, no hitch, no nothing like that. They're an actual house fixed to the ground, and FHA will finance them. So it makes them marketable for more buyers, which is why we were interested in it whenever we got it. We got the lead through our radio ads that we blast.
Radio ads? Really?
That has actually been our most consistent marketing.
That is so cool. Do people still listen to the radio though, like in their cars?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, I assume they're calling me, and everywhere, you go to a pool, like our pool across the street, they're blasting the radio all day.
Good point.
You go to a doctor's office or something, if there's not any TV, they're blasting the radio.
Hair salons. Good point.
All service areas are always playing radio. And in our area, there's a lot of Christian stations through Salem Media. And so that's the radio station we decided to market through.
Nice. All right. So how large is this property? What is it on? How many acres? How many beds and baths? What's the square footage?
Sure. It was about 1,500 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 2 baths. The family that lived in it were kind of doing some updates, and the house was in fairly good shape, but they had I don't know what they were doing exactly, if they were raising exotic pets or just weird. I'm not really sure, but it was in need of some touch whenever we got it. The house is on 5 acres. I think it was an early 2000s model manufactured home. So it wasn't very old. The roof had just been replaced, I think a year or two before we got it. They called us. They were needing to sell because they were moving. I, at the time, was trying to let my team take a little bit more control. So I paid my realtor $100 to go out, view the property, take some pictures, take some videos, let me look at it. That's how I kind of assessed the property and gave him an offer on it. It's the first time I'd ever done that. And I bought the property 2 years ago. So it was kind of like the stepping stone that I got into somewhat of virtual wholesaling.
Interesting. And this is, listeners, as you are in real estate for years and now you're going to start scaling. And part of scaling is really trusting in other people to take over some of your job responsibilities. So as you speak to a control freak here, Samson, I'm one of those like, it would be very difficult for me to give that part up, but more power to you. I'm glad that you put trust in your people to go and do the actual walkthrough. So it's on 5 acres. That's great. And it's newer. I'm liking this so far. So what was the asking price when they first reached out to you?
I think they were wanting like 65 or 70.
Really?
So they weren't wanting a whole lot. And after looking at it and seeing that we're going to have to do some paint, some flooring, they had some kind of half-done projects going on. I offered, I believe, 60. And they said they'd take it. They just need to stay in the house an additional month so they could kind of gather things, get ready, and move. I no longer do that. And this is one of the properties that made me kind of not do that. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, we do it. We just hold a certain amount of funds in escrow and all. No,
Nope.
just don't do it. Delay closing, whatever you got to do, because this 5 acres went from looking like fairly well to like 4 foot tall with paths of grass just to the house. They just kind of stopped taking care of it.
Wow.
All the way around, like inside and out. So it went from like, hey, we got to do like 5-ish K in rehab to like, now I got to hire a company to come out and like take all this grass down from like 4 or 5 foot tall, multiple mows. It was an ordeal.
Oh,
Food all over the place. It was bad.
I too have been in the same situation. You really want to help out the homeowner, and
Mm-hmm.
sure, I'll rent back for a month. And that month turned into almost 2 months and a little ghosting going on. Ugh, that was a horrible time dealing with that. So I agree. I won't be doing that anymore. You said it so politely.
Yeah.
So you offered them 60. You've already closed on the property. They're living there an additional month. And I guess they paid you a rent
I think
back.
they paid me like $1,000 or something in rent.
All right. So now you get the property, they move out. What are the estimated repairs at the time of purchase?
I was thinking 5 to 10.
Okay.
It ended up being like 10 to 15.
Okay, not bad.
So it wasn't terrible. A lot of that was just, I hadn't actually been to the property yet, and owning a construction company, I'm still the general. I'm still wanting to go out and be more efficient, especially with my own projects, and do the minor repairs. I still use electricians, roofers, and everybody else to do a lot of the other stuff, but I haven't found a carpenter who can find his way off a paper bag yet. So I'm still swinging a hammer occasionally, but I've gotten a lot better at making that even more efficient.
Good. Very good.
So we go out. It's a mess. There's trash probably 15 foot tall sitting at the curb. Fortunately, because it's in the county, you just call the county, they come out and get it. Unfortunately, it's like July, so it's hot and this trash is reeking.
Ugh.
So, we bought it with the intentions of wholesaling it, which we tried to do during their kind of rental period. Nobody bid on that. So we went to kind of plan B, which is okay, we'll rehab it to rent and see how that goes, which we did. We got it cleaned up. It looked nice. We actually knew somebody who was moving to the area, transferring from a shipping job that was going to take a job here in Little Rock. And they decided, you know what, we like this area. We've never lived in Little Rock though, so we want to rent it for a while. So we rented it to them for $1,100. With a 6-month term to reevaluate at the 6 months to see kind of like if we're going to sell it to them or what that's going to look like, because they had some things that they were working on that they were going to do. That went fairly well. There was no issues. I think 1 or 2 things come up that, of course, you don't really notice whenever you buy a new house, you renovate it a little bit, and someone lives in it actually. We had to fix. I think we did some AC repair. And then like hose bib broke outside in the winter, like froze up and exploded or something. So we ended up spending about $1,000 more in repairs during that rental period, but we're getting, I think, cash flowing like $600.
Right.
By the time that we got the tenant in, it took about 2 months to renovate and then get the tenant in place. We refinanced it with them in it. and ended up pulling out about $22,000.
Nice. So how did you finance it just to acquire it?
We use private money,
Private money.
100% financing with 3 points on the back end.
Wow. Okay. And then you're refinancing it with them out of the deal. So now it's in your business name.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And by the way, can we talk about the 1% rule? You know the 1% rule?
Yes.
So listeners, when you are purchasing a property to rent, you want it to be at least 1% of the purchase price. Is that how you understand it, Samson?
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you buy a property for $100,000, you need to be getting at least $1,000 in rent.
And you bought this property for 60, and you are getting 1,100. So that is almost a 2% right there, which is amazing. And then it's cash flowing. There's another rule that I go by, that every door should be profiting take home at least 300 a door. And here you're getting 600. So this is win-win already. So now you're at the 6-month mark and you're having a conversation with this. Is it a couple or?
Yeah, it was a couple. They were loving the property. They'd actually bought like a little tough shed thing to store stuff. They got a mower. I mean, they were making it home.
Nice.
They were actually even cleaning up some areas that we didn't really fine tune on the back part of the 5 acres. So they were looking to buy it. Their credit wasn't quite where they were expecting it to be at the 6-month mark. So they were asking us about owner financing. I've never done that before, but we implemented kind of what's called a mortgage wrap. We already had a mortgage in place because we refinanced it, and we used that appraisal as our sell price to the tenant.
What did it appraise at?
$110,000.
Nice.
And they were good with it. They're like, yeah, no, that works. So what we did was we charged them $10,000 down. So now we got $10,000 back in our pocket, pretty much all our rehab money.
In addition to the 22 you already made at the closing table.
Correct.
Oh my gosh.
And because we knew them, we only charged them 6%. But most people, when they do any kind of mortgage wraps or even owner financing, are charging closer to like 9 to 10.
Right. Okay.
So if anybody ever wants to do that, that's where you need to be. 6% is not going to get you where you want to be.
Gotcha.
But we knew these people, they didn't want to pay a bunch of interest, and they were willing to pay it off in 6 years. So I kind of formulated a payment that kind of worked for both of us. And because also when I refinanced it, because it was a rental property, it was on like a 5-year note. It was amortized for 20 years, but I had to either refi or pay it off in 5 years. So financing with them for 6 kind of helped me out on like a 1-year payoff type deal and had them paid out.
Nice. That's so smart.
It was a win-win.
Yeah.
All the way around. They liked it. They worked with it. We did it all in a contract form. So we also did ACH payments while we were doing our rental property agreement with them, and then with the mortgage wrap, so that there's no like, hey, we're chasing you down to get a check or anything like that. You never want to do that with tenants. You always want to do ACH or some kind of platform or system where they can pay by credit card, worst case scenario.
And that also helps build their credit too. If you see that you have, because you said their credit wasn't that great at the 6-month mark, and that, by doing direct deposit, things like that, that also will help to build their credit. So I think that's super, super smart. Okay, keep going.
Absolutely. If you have something set up to where it reports to the credit bureaus, it will help it. If you don't, then it won't. So, I mean, if you do anything and if you want to have that as kind of like a value add to what you're offering as a landlord or I guess a note holder, that's definitely something that you could do. So they're moving in.
What were they paying monthly at the 6-month mark?
I think it was like a little over $1,800 at this point. So I'm like charging taxes, insurance, and everything in this point, because, when you're a landlord, you're paying the taxes and insurance. When you're owner financing or even doing a mortgage wrap like this was, they're paying everything. It's like a lease option, except for they are the owners. And we had in our contract that if any alterations to the property, they had to come to us to agree upon and all those kinds of things. So we didn't just give them free reign like a lot of, if you were buying it as a homeowner, because it wasn't in their name yet.
Okay.
So we're not signing over a deed. We're not doing a formal closing. That was in our agreement that the final payment, there would be a formal closing to deed it over to them. But with a mortgage wrap, it stays in your name, and all you're doing is doing a whole separate agreement to sell them the property, basically leasing it to them as a lease to own agreement.
Awesome. I love all this. Super, super creative. So this is perfect. And you're still to this day collecting $1,800 a month, right?
Was. So, 2022, I bought this property, rented it all through 2023. And then the beginning of this year, that's when the mortgage wrap kind of fell apart. They called like out of the blue. They were like on time, all like first of the month with their payments all the time. And then like December rolled around last year, and some reason they're late a little bit. It's like, okay. And then January, they're like real late. And I was like, whoa, what's up, man? And like, I lost my job. This 1,800 is kind of killing me a little bit. And again, nice guy. Because I knew him. I was like, let's do this. Let's refinance your note to lower your payment. We're going to go out 12 years now. I'll keep it at 6%, but you're going to pay $1,100 a month again.
Good.
So, okay, no problem. Great. February comes around. They still ain't paying. All right, talk to them again. I had a job, but I got laid off. They said they needed people, and then they didn't need people. Now, mind you, I own other rental property, and I don't do this with nobody.
Okay.
Nobody. But again, we knew these people, which is like the worst thing you can do when you do any kind of owner financing. Right. Don't ever owner finance if you know somebody. I don't care who you are. It's never going to end well. Okay. It may be for 1 month. It may be 10 years down the road. It's not going to end well one way or another. The relationship's going to be strained.
Are you listening, listeners?
Yeah. Learn from my mistakes.
Yes.
So 3-4 months go by, they ain't paying. So they racked up like a $4,000 bill. Okay. I kick them out. I just tell them, hey, it's time to get, and they get. So now I got this property that I got to do something with. Now, mind you, most states, you can't just tell them to go. You have to go through an eviction process, right. Which you can physically do your own eviction. There's nothing that says you can't. If you want the sheriff to help you remove them or have a court order to remove them, then you got to file it all, wait the 15, 30 days, whatever it is for the process server to do their thing. So a lot of people think like the only way to evict is like you got to go to the courthouse. You got to file for an eviction or what is it called? I've never done it, so I don't know. I can't. It's like a lawful detainer. That's what it is. Okay. Unlawful detainer. Okay, you go to the courthouse, you file unlawful detainer. That hits the sheriff's desk. Sheriff like does his old process thing, and then they'll come out and help you remove the person. Okay, but I've never had to do that. We have kind of a system in place where we use fancy paper, a lot of legal jargon, send out notices. I show up on their door, hand it to them. They get freaked out. They're usually gone in the next day.
Really?
It's worked out well for us.
Knock on wood.
I mean, people who are trying to like scam you, you could kind of tell on the front end.
Right. That is
so
true.
When you vet your tenants, if you're going to have a problem, you're usually going to notice it either in some kind of red flag in their application or when you physically meet them to like hand them the keys or however you have that set up. So we don't have any problems. If something goes down and we've had to remove a tenant, it's either because we've inherited them and they weren't paying before and now we're serious and we're doing all the right things as far as what the law says we're supposed to do and they're getting scared, or something has happened in their life and changed their income level. And they understand it typically in either we set up a payment plan or they just get out.
And so in the agreement, because I know they did a $10,000 down payment, what was the agreement about that? Is that returned? Is that in your pocket? What was the agreement?
That's non-refundable.
Non-refundable. Got it. Okay.
That's non-refundable. Absolutely.
Very, very smart. All right. So they move out, luckily, just by you showing up, saying you got to go, and they were out the next day?
No. 30 days is what I gave them.
Okay.
Because they were at the point where, and I felt bad for them. They were selling everything like
Oh,
vehicles, furniture. They were selling all they could, but they weren't paying rent. They were just like, I don't know, paying everybody else but us.
right.
Um, so they needed to like know that, hey, I got a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is to be able to get out. And they got out
Good.
in a year. People can do a lot of damage. Um, Fortunately, they didn't do a massive amount, but like the whole house smelled like cigars. It was
Ugh.
bad. We were able to remediate 90% of that. There's still, I'm pretty sensitive to it, so I could have smell a hint of it because I didn't want to like repaint the whole house
Right.
and remove all the flooring. It was just,
How'd you
no.
do it? An Ozo machine?
We used that only worked to a certain extent. I have a company that I hire for my Airbnbs that comes out and fogs. They
Oh,
fog like the air handlers and all the things, the ducts, and they run the system and it like attaches to the molecules somehow and
wow.
like eliminates it. It did pretty good. I also went through and Febreze like any and all fabric afterwards to like just kind of give like that cigar scented linen, how that goes. So I mean, it helped. It was fine. It was
Wow.
fine. We had to do some touch up painting, some minor exterior stuff, some cleanup. I went ahead and put in a gravel driveway that wasn't already there. And then we went ahead and we're like, okay, do we want to do this again? They're like, no. I'm like, I'm done with this property. We're just going to sell it. So market had went up a little bit since we had refinanced it. There still were not comps to really show us exactly what the property would sell for, but we felt the fair price was like 120,000 because it appraised for 110 a few years ago.
Right. Smart.
We've added a driveway. We've cleaned it up a little bit more. This is where we're at. And typically for something like this, I would probably list myself. I know you're not supposed to list your own properties when you're a real estate investor. Everybody and anybody is going to tell you don't do that. But I got just as good a track record as my realtors on selling properties. So it's kind of like I just weigh the sellability of the house and how easy it's going to be and determine whether I want to put the time and effort and save that extra 10, 20, 30,000, whatever it is, depending on the price range of the house. This one, I was done. So I was like, hey, 5%, you sell it. And 2 weeks is sold. So
Wow.
owner occupant, I think they had an FHA loan. Obviously, it appraised fine. When you're doing manufactured homes, there's also what's called an engineering inspection.
Hmm.
So they go and they make sure all the tie downs that they do whenever they set the house aren't in poor shape, that the underpinning and foundation work is stable. They do a lot of different things that I wasn't aware of. So that was kind of a learning process for me as far as like selling a manufactured home. But that was it. I mean, it was actually pretty easy. Of course, being that range of a buyer, they wanted closing costs of some form or fashion. I gave them a home warranty, and I think we had like $300 worth of stuff the inspector found that we need to fix. So
Wow.
it wasn't too bad.
Awesome. And I love that you got super creative on this one because a lot of people, they get a property and they just give up too easily. So I love that you had different exit strategies ready to go. And because it's in real estate, especially these days, you got to learn to pivot. So, question on the property. This is just me personally thinking how to monetize this whole situation. So, this is on 5 acres. It's one manufactured home on 5 acres. Did you think about maybe dividing up and maybe doing 2.5 acres and then selling off the other part? Did it not perk? I'm assuming it's on well and septic. So like, could you have done something more with the land or you were just like, I'm done with it at this point?
So when we got it, and we were kind of, even while we were renting it, several different strategies had come up as far as what we could do with the property. Where it was located, there were a lot of, it was kind of this weird loop off of a highway, and there was a lot of other manufactured homes kind of around it on each individual parcels. and some are in okay shape, and some of them were like the back windshield say "kill them all" kind of deal. So, um, I was like, ideally, yeah, we had city water or it was like county
Really?
water type deal, but it was
Nice.
on septic.
Ugh.
Internet out there, you could only do like satellite, so that was a little of a challenge to some
Mm,
people if we were trying to like branch out a little bit more. But we thought about making it like a mobile home park in its own
right.
because it was 5 acres. I think it would have perked fine. I didn't see any issues with any of that. However, that would probably been another $40,000, $50,000 in pads and utility work and a bunch of other things. And I just wasn't loving the investment enough to want to do that. So, and this was even before kind of like everything happened with the owner finance situation not doing so well.
All right, so let's dive into breaking out the numbers here. So you purchased it for 60,000 with private money.
Yep.
Your repairs, you estimated 5 to 10,000, but you actually did 10 to 15. Now, is that including what you did on the back end, or did you have to do more additional
I had to
renovations?
do an
Additionals.
additional
Okay.
roughly 5,000 once the owner finance situation fell apart.
Okay, so about 20,000 repairs then at that point. You have a private money lender, so your interest you said was how much in the beginning?
So we were able to negotiate 8%,
Woo!
which we've done. This lender has been my main lender for years, 10 years at this point. And we started out, 50-50. Then we hit a big $600,000 lick on a monster project. And we're like, hey, stuff's got to change. So he, uh, he went to doing interest only payments with me, but he'd still finance 100% of rehab and everything, but it was like 12%, and which is fine. The only problem was he wanted paid monthly. So it's like your cash flow
Oof.
was killed.
Yes.
So it's like you got to weigh the options there and what you know. But I had remodel company, own a remodel company, so it was like that'll cash flow the rehabs. The rehabs will pay the chunk, and we'll just keep rolling that train. And that worked well until not so much. But anyway, 2020 came along and we started getting into multifamily for longer hold times, and I negotiated 8% on these deals with him, and I'd pay him like 2 points on the back end. And then that 2 points went to 3 points as the interest rate started going up.
All right.
But this one was 2 points, 8%.
Nice.
Um, so whenever I refinanced it, it was like $64,000 went to him. I had 12,000 in rehab. Um, Whenever I turned around and sold it at the very end, I had 6,000 in realtor costs, 3,000 in concessions, $1,000 in closings for both sides because I had to pay their closing costs on that, and then $5,000 in additional rehab whenever the people moved out to get it ready to sell. So that puts me about 91 grand. Then
Nice.
over the 18 or so months that I owned it, right at a little bit less than 2 years, I had about $3,000 in insurance I paid, $1,000 in taxes, and about $1,000 in miscellaneous stuff I had to pay. So that's about 96 grand. And then total mortgage payments to the bank, because of course I had a note, was about 12 grand over that time period, which puts me about $108,000 all into this property over the past 2 years. Okay. And when you go in reverse and you start looking at your profit margins, I made about 6,600 in rents for the first 6 to 8 months, $22,000 on the refi. I got 21 grand paid whenever we were doing the 12 months of owner finance with them. And then, of course, the $10,000 on the down payment. Then that puts me at getting about 26 grand whenever I sold it net. So 85, 600 is where I was on total gross proceeds from the renting it, holding it, down payment, selling it. And 108 was where I was on total all in for the 2 years of owning it and expenses. So the net was about $42,400
That is,
off a manufactured home.
that is amazing. Within 2 years too. And you have like cash flow coming in the meantime as well to keep your other businesses afloat and other projects, etc. So
Right.
excellent job. I love every part of this. I still don't think I'll ever do a manufactured home just because I'm just nervous about them. And it's funny because there are some really fancy ones now. And I'm like, really, that's a manufactured home? So very, very cool. I feel like this was such a great lesson for the listeners. So having done this project, will you do similar projects like this in the future?
It's going to have to meet some criteria.
Yes.
We've kind of found that about 100 to 150-ish thousand is kind of a sweet spot for manufactured homes, and it has to be on at least 3 acres. So if we can get out in less than $80,000 all in, then it'll be a good deal for us.
Awesome.
I don't know that I'll do any more on the financing though. It'll just be a flip kind of deal.
And what were your main takeaways from this project? So you had never done seller financing prior to this. Do you think you would
Correct.
do seller financing with a different deal, not necessarily a mobile home or manufactured home?
Possibly a house that's a little bit more durable.
Yeah.
It would probably make a little bit more sense.
So, so good. Samson, thank you so much for sharing this. I think this is an excellent teaching tool. And you actually reached out to me and said, hey, I got this great project. So I appreciate you knowing the worth of my students or listeners, shall we say, and to bring this. I think that's super important. So we're going to go into the second part of the podcast here, which is what makes Samson a badass. And I use the acronym BADASS, and the first letter is B for book. What's a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
The 4 Agreements. You can get it on audiobook,
good one.
or you can get the little paperback. It's a quick read or listen, but it is definitely worth every bit of its weight in gold.
It's like Miguel Ruiz.
Yeah, Ruiz, I think.
Yes. Oh, that was a good one. I got that sitting on my bookshelf. I'm going to have to dust that off. It's been a while since I've read that. All right. The first A in BADASS is for advice. You gave us a bunch of great advice on seller financing and rent backs. Don't ever do rent backs. I love that. But what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I'm not sure who told it to me the first time, but I've heard it several times through the coaches and stuff that I've had, mentors in my life. But don't compare your goals and journey to someone else's.
Ooh.
And I've heard it said different ways, like don't compare your first quarter to someone's fourth quarter, that kind of deal. And I know we all get into like a comparison game. We're seeing these people on social media for all purposes, not really true to exactly what's going on, because you don't know what their bank account looks like. You don't know what their business is. You don't know if their family life is falling apart and you just happen. It's like a photo. That photo looked great for that second, but you don't know how much the mom was beating the kid to get her to smile or whatever it was. It's that's life. But you know, everyone has their trials and struggles and stuff. But that one's always kind of rang true, and I have to kind of dial myself back when I show myself kind of getting into the gap of things.
Well said. All right. The D in BADASS is for drive. What drives you to be successful?
I mean, just trying to be better each day. Just if you're 1% better each day, or even fraction of that, I mean, you're that much better by the end of the year. 365% if you're 1% better every day, kind of deal. And that's kind of the drive, is just to try to do a little bit better every day.
So good. Awesome. All right. The second A in BADASS is for aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
I am trying to help 100 people reach their goals. And that could be real estate, could be personal health, mindset, perspective. I mean, it's construction, anything. I mean, I have an enormous amount of knowledge. I just don't know how to like spew it all over everybody. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I mean, I can answer a lot of questions and help kind of guide people and even give a roadmap to solving a lot of their problems and reaching the goals they want.
And this stems from your background with NLP, correct?
Correct.
Which is neuro linguistics programming. And I have been the recipient of your badassery. Before we hit record, I was talking about a conversation that we had that really was very meaningful to me. So it still has stuck with me to this day. And you are so good at what you do. And whether it's through business or, like you said, personal stuff, fitness, you're a great listener. You have great ideas and concepts. And I'm again, truly grateful for your friendship, but I can see where it would be such a benefit for you to spew all over everybody, as you said. I'm going to use that from now on. Who you spewing on these days? So, how would people find you to, get some of this NLP action from you?
Facebook. I have a public profile. Anybody can message me. It's kind of like open to the world. I typically do Messenger. I don't do LinkedIn a lot. I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't do LinkedIn a lot. So Facebook is most easiest way to get me.
Perfect. All right. The first S in badass is for systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
Team members and coaches. Having people who know more than I know is key to really anything, and being open to listening to them is the other part.
Yeah, that's definitely huge. How do you do calls with people though? Do you have it's not a coaching program, but how do people, do they sign up for something with you? How would they benefit from learning NLP from you? I'm sorry, I'm jumping back to the other portion here.
You're all right. So when someone contacts me, usually it's through a DM or just messaging in some form or fashion through either Facebook or LinkedIn. And we kind of assess where you're at, because I can want it for you all day long, but if you don't want it, I can't help you, kind of deal. It's like looking through a peephole and saying, who's there? And then expecting the person to be able to come in the door and do something. You have to be open. And usually when the student is ready, the teacher arrives. And so that's kind of how it works. If you message me on Facebook, we'll go through kind of a series of questions to see kind of where you're at and see if you're a good fit for how I can help you. And then we just kind of tailor it to what you need.
Awesome. Very good. And again, listeners, Samson really helped me through a situation, and I wouldn't say tough, because that's kind of got a negative connotation to it, but you were very direct, and you asked me a very simple question that was kind of a punch to my stomach, but I was like, gosh, I so needed that. So you are truly gifted at what you do. All right. Samson, I could talk to you all day. So to wrap up this podcast, the final S in badass is for success. What does success mean to you?
Every day you're your own competition. If you get out of your own way, then you'll have success. And so each day it's just a matter of how do I get out of my own way?
Well, I hope you never get out of my way, and I hope you keep coming back with these awesome, amazing projects. And you are just a dear friend and so good at what you do. So I do truly appreciate your time and coming back on the show today. So to find him on Facebook, it's SamsonBurch on Facebook. So definitely check him out. And he's a mutual friend of mine, so you can find him that way as well. So Samson, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Jen.
Absolutely. And that is all. Thank you for listening. And we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.